And now we will be making the legs. So since there's 24 stitches around, we will be skipping 12 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And this is the 13th stitch here, so I just give that a little pinch. Just bring your hook in front, just take your work across like this and put it into that 13th stitch there like that. Pull nice and tight and then just yarn over and pull through. And now you've got those joined nice and tight, and then yarn over and pull through. So now that will count as the first stitch of the first round of the left leg. So the first round of the left leg says to single crochet 7, decrease 2 and single crochet 1. So we'll just do our 1 already there, and now 2 and 7. So that's our 7 single crochets. Now, so that we can create the little shape of the bottom, we're going to be decreasing 2. So we'll be doing those in the front loops only, just like we did earlier. So into that front loop and then into the next front loop, yarn over and pull through, and that's our first decrease. And now we'll do a second one, front loops only again. That's our second decrease, and now just a single crochet into that very last stitch. And that just brings us to our original marker. So now the easy part is to just single crochet around for 10 single crochets. Now you just want to make sure that you get this little stitch here, this one here, the join one, just like under the arm. You have to make sure you get that one, otherwise you end up with quite a big gap and one less stitch. So go in under there, and that will be your first stitch of that round, and then you just continue around to do 10 in total. And for the legs, I do about 13 rounds. So you can really do as many rounds as you like, but the minimum would be about 13. And don't finish the very last stitch. When you get to that 10th single crochet, we'll be changing color, because we'll just make this a pair of shorts, and then you can even just put a little skirt over the top of shorts and treat them like a pair of undies, but at least then we can do the color changing together. So just keep going around and I'll see you at the marker. And the 10th single crochet of round 2, which we won't finish because we'll be changing our color back to the skin tone. So we have our 2 loops on the hook, and just take your skin tone. Now you could continue this on to make a pair of jeans. We'll just pull that through, and now we're ready to do the rest of her legs, and we'll be doing this in the back loops only, just like we did for the other color changes. So there's our color, which we will be tying after we've gone past this slip stitch in the next round. So then you just find your first available V, which is this little one down in here, and just go into the back loop only and pull up a slip stitch. There we go. And now you just want to do single crochet 9 into the rest of those back loops only. So that brings us to the end of round 3 in the back loops only. So round 4 to round 14 is just to single crochet 10 around for those rounds. Now if you want to, you can actually make the legs a little longer by adding a couple of rounds. That's up to you. And do remember to stuff as you go, because it gets a little trickier to stuff because the legs are a much smaller space than the head and the body. And keep your tension the same. And I'm just now coming up to the last stitch of round 14. Now don't finish this stitch, just leave your 2 loops on the hook, and we'll be changing color for the little shoes. I'll just be doing red shoes. So pull on your thread and pull through those 2 loops. Round 15 will be the back loops only again. So the first stitch will be a slip stitch, then we're going to single crochet 4, then increase 2 and single crochet 3. So we'll just do that first slip stitch. Now it's single crochet 4 into those back loops, and that's our fourth single crochet. Now we're going to increase 2 once again into these back loops only, and then finish off with a single crochet 3. So there's our first increase, and the last single crochet of that round, which was the single crochet 3 after the increases, and that brings us to the end of round 15. Now round 16 is to single crochet 7, increase 1 and then single crochet 4. So we'll just go under this slip stitch here and single crochet 7 and our 7th single crochet, and then we'll be doing another increase, and that increase should be landing in between these 2 increases that you did on the previous row just here. So there's the increase. So we've got our increase 1 and then just single crochet 4. And our 4th single crochet, which brings us to the end of that round. Now for round 17, we will be just single crocheting 13 stitches around. So the final round will be finishing off the feet and just closing them off with a bunch of decreases. And make sure you've stuffed your feet and legs enough, and you can just add a little bit more stuffing when we've done these decreases before we close the hole. So we're going to be doing them in the back loops only, and it's decrease 6. So we'll just go in there, pull up the loop in that back loop, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop again, and then yarn over and pull through all 3. It's just a little bit different to the invisible decrease. It's more like the 2 together style. So we just go to the next 2 stitches, go into that back loop, pull up some yarn, then go into the next back loop. You still want to keep this nice and tight as well with your tension. Pull up that piece of thread or yarn, yarn over with these 3 loops on your hook and pull through all 3. And the same again. So you're just doing that all the way around, and then when you get to the very last stitch, that will be on its own. So that will just be a slip stitch to finish off. And the very last stitch is a slip stitch. So just into that back loop as well. Pull that through, move all that stuffing. Hopefully it doesn't come through. No, it didn't. That's good. Okay, and that's our slip stitch. So now you want to just pull up a big long loop, which will end up being your tail for sewing, and just cut off your threads. And now I'll just show you how I do close off this tiny little gap. So just add a tiny bit more stuffing if you need to now before we seal off these last few stitches here. So now just to close off this little gap here at the end, just put your thread through a sewing needle and then just go to your first loop here, just from that first decrease that you did, and just go into that front loop only. So you're going from the inside of the work to the outside and just pull that through. And basically you'll just be doing this through those 6 decreases that you made. So that's the first one. And then just take your needle again from the back. It's tricky to see through the camera. So just pull that through as well. That's your second one. And now the next decrease was here, just that front loop as well. Pull that through, and one more just into that front loop as well, and just pull that through. Now you should be able to just hold on to the base of the foot and then just take your thread and just give it a pull, and it should close up. Yes, that's good. Sometimes it doesn't, and I think it's because when I catch some of the thread as I'm going through that front loop. So that could be a reason if yours doesn't close up so easily. So now I'm just going to go under this one here just to really close off this tiny little hole. So I'll just go under, just under that one there will do. And that should close up very nicely, as you can see. Now that will flatten out. You just give it a little push. It's just because we've been pulling at it. And it just creates a nice close, nice and neat, and also creates as flat a foot as I can get it. So then when you do put your final thread through, just go back in nice and close to where you just came out and just thread your needle up somewhere through the body. I just actually do a couple of times. So what I do to really secure it is I go here into this one. So then just take your thread and go across the front here, and then I'll just go out to the back somewhere, and that just winds the thread around the bottom of the foot, and just pull that through, and it just leaves a tiny little line, but it looks like it's part of the style of the shoe. That's up to you if you want to do that, but that just, to me, just secures it, and it also gives me the opportunity to pull it really tight, and then you can just thread the needle and hide it somewhere in the body. And that just creates a nice neat finish to close off the bottom of the foot. So now we're going to do the right leg. For the right leg, you want to have the doll's back facing you, and then you just want to find your first available stitch, this first V here, and just insert your hook into there, and just pull up a loop and make a chain in that space. Now that chain won't be counted as a stitch, or leave yourself a bit of a tail, because you'll be needing to sew a tiny little gap that will be here when you're finished. So just leave yourself a little bit of a tail for sewing, and then just make a chain. Now this just gets us onto the doll. It's not counted as a stitch. So for round one, it's to single crochet one. So we'll go back into that same space where we made the chain, and just do one single crochet in there, and just move those little tails out of the way, and there's that first single crochet. Then the next step is to decrease 2 and then to single crochet 7. So we have our single crochet 1 into the space that we joined in. Now decrease 2, and I do the invisible decrease, as you know, and just pull through those 2 loops. And then we'll do one more of those invisible decreases. And now you just want to go around and single crochet 7. Keep your tension the same as you did for the other leg, because if you don't, you'll end up with one leg smaller than the other. So try and keep a consistent tension throughout, and keep that stuffing out of the way as well. And the 7th single crochet, which brings us to the end of round 1 of that right leg. So now you're just going to be joining the leg across to the back. So just turn the doll around so that her back is facing you. And this tail here, just move it out of the way to the other side so that it doesn't get trapped inside the leg as you're crocheting. And that way it'll also be available for you when you want to sew. So just move up this other little leg out of the way, and just bring your hook across to the front and just go under both those V's, or under both those loops, sorry, under that little V, and just pull up your stitch and yarn over and pull through. And that's the stitch number 1 of round 2, and there's 10 stitches in total. So that's 1, and continue around till you do your 10 single crochets. Now on that 10th single crochet, don't finish that stitch because we will be changing color to the skin color. And I'm just coming up to the 10th stitch of round 2, the 10th single crochet, which brings us to the end of that round. Now, if you've noticed, I've actually just used a piece of thread here to tie back the leg to keep it out of the way. You can use a rubber band or a piece of thread, and I do recommend you do this because this little leg does get in the way, and it actually makes a difference to your tension. I noticed that I was doing much smaller right legs than left legs, and part of the reason was because the left leg was just getting in the way all the time. So do keep that in mind. Now I actually shouldn't have finished off that stitch, so I'll just go back and just take out that last little loop that I did. And now we're just going to be having our 2 loops on the hook, and then just take your skin color back and pull through your skin color. And now we have our color change. Now we're just going to be doing our back loop only method. And the first available V is the little one here that joined the leg across. So we'll just go into the back loop of that one and just pull up a loop. And the first one is always a slip stitch, just to keep that color change a little more even. So just slip stitch there. And now you just want to do the other 9 stitches that are left into the back loops only, and they're just straight single crochets. So just single crochet 9 into the back loops only. Single crochet into that back loop, and that brings us to the end of round 3. Now rounds 4 to 14 are all just to single crochet 10 around, just like with the left leg. So make sure that you just add a little bit more stuffing into the bottom, and then just stuff as you go for the whole leg, and I'll meet you back at round 14. And the 10th single crochet of round 14. So now we're going to be doing the color changes for the little shoes. Now the one thing that I do different for this little leg is, as you can see here, the end of the round finishes at the front of the foot, and it's not really a good spot to do color changes. So what I do is I actually just do single crochet 3, and then I move the marker to the new position. But on this one, we will actually be changing color as well in that new position. So I'll just show you what I mean. So you just do your 2 single crochets first. So that's 1 and then 2. And now on the 3rd single crochet, we will be pulling up the loop for our new color. So we just go in, pull up a loop, then just take your color and thread that through. Oops. And just pull your color through. Now the very next stitch, as you know, will be a slip stitch as well. So we'll do that part in a moment. But here now will be your last stitch of the round. So that's our new marker position here where the color has been pulled through. So now for this round, what we'll be doing is our back loop only round, just like we did before. And we also need to be doing a couple of increases at the very front of the foot. So we'll just go into this loop here, into the back loop, and just pull up a slip stitch. So there's our slip stitch, and you just need a little bit of a tail here just to tie up a knot, to tie in those ends together. Now we're just going to be going into these back loops only, and we're going to be single crocheting 4. So we've got 1 and the 4th single crochet into those back loops. And now we're going to increase 2. So we'll do our 2 increases, and they will be landing here at the front of the foot, which is what we want. So just into those back loops, and we're going to increase 2. And our second increase. And then we've just got our final 2 stitches just to single crochet, and that brings us to the end of that round. And the last one in here, which brings us to the marker. Round 16 is to single crochet 7 and increase 1, and then single crochet 3. So we single crochet 7 and the 7th single crochet. So now we will do an increase, and that increase should be landing here right in the middle of these two increases that you did in the previous round. So we'll do our increase, and then there's single crochet 3, which will get you to the end of the round. So there's the increase, and then single crochet 3. And our third single crochet brings us to the end of the round. So now for round 17, we're just going to be single crocheting 13 stitches around. So 13 single crochets, and I'll just meet you back at the marker. And now round 18 is done exactly the same as for the left leg, where we will be doing our 6 decreases into those back loops only, and then just finishing off with a slip stitch. And then you'll just be closing off with your needle and thread, that small gap, taking it through those front loops with your needle. So I'll just meet you back at the end of this round. And the last stitch is a slip stitch. So I've done my 6 decreases and now a slip stitch for round 18, well, the final round anyway. So now just pull through and leave yourself some thread so that you can do the sew up the bottom, and just pull that through and just do the same steps as we did for the left leg. And you've just got that tiny little gap now to close up the way you did for the left leg. And just follow the same procedure where you just take your needle and go into the front loop. So you're going from the inside of the foot to the outside, and just make your way around each stitch around, and then just pull it tight. And it should close nicely. So we've finished her little legs now, and I'll just show you how I sew up the little gap between her legs. It's only a small little gap, but it will need a couple of little stitches in there. So I'll just go from here, and I'm just going to pick up some of these little front loops here from the stitches that are here, making sure to leave the stuffing behind. And I just really just go around in a little circle. And then from that one, I'll just pick up another loop here at the front, just trying not to go through a whole stitch, because when you go through a whole stitch, it just becomes a little bit obvious. So just going through the front loops. And then I'll just go through this one here. I probably should have left the legs tied up, but that's okay. Now just through to the back. There's a couple of little spaces here, so I'll just go under this one. Trying not to pick up a whole stitch is the main thing. So I'll just pick up that loop there. And my thread keeps coming out, so I have to keep pausing, so I do apologize. But we'll just go in through this last little one here. I left a very short tail, which I often do, so I should learn not to do that. And pull through, and I think you just saw that. I hope you just saw that. So when you pulled tight, you could see that that gap closed up very nicely just by going around in those front loops. Next we will be making her arms, so we'll just start with the left arm. You've got the doll facing you, and then you're just going to find the first available V, and then insert your hook into the back loop only of that V. So we'll just insert it into that back loop, and then you'll just be pulling up your skin tone and just pull that through, and just leave a little tail for sewing. Actually leave a little bit of a longer tail just to have for the underarm sewing, and then just pull up a chain, and then you'll be going back into that same space again into the back loop to create your first single crochet of the 8 stitches that you need for the arms. So there's the first one, and now you just continue in those back loops only. So that's the end of round 1 with the back loop only. Now to just join in the arm, just turn the doll around, and you want to actually put this thread behind the doll, because otherwise it gets stuck in the arm and you won't be able to use it for sewing in. So just put it behind the doll, and then at the very end there's often a tiny little gap, and you'll just use that to sew in that little gap. Now you just reach across, just bring your hook across like this, and you just go into that first V, that first available stitch. Just yarn over and pull through, and you'll be single crocheting for 10 rounds. And I shall meet you back at the end of those 10 rounds. Now, if you like, as I said, you can make the arms a little longer. Now I'll just be taking my sewing needle, and I just go from the inside into that open loop at the front and then to the outside. So only into that front loop, the one right in front of you, and just pull that through. And you'll just be going through each little stitch, just the front loop only, making your way around, and the last little front loop here. Now once you've done that through each of those loops, then all you do is just pull it, just hold it at the hand and just give it a little pull, and then that should close shut very nicely, no gaps. And then just lean your thread in this direction here, because if you lean it this way it tends to open everything up. So if you just lean it forward here and then just take your needle and put it back through that little hole there that you have and up through the arm, and you can just hide it in the body. You can go through a couple of times. I'll just do one for now and just take it out somewhere out the body. And now you can see it's a nice close, nice and even, and then you can just cut off your loose ends. Just give it a little bit of a tug and just snip nice and close. And then the arm is done. You can just stretch that out a little bit, because when I threaded it through, and you can just even twist things just to spread the stuffing around. And there we go. That's the arm. It looks a little bit pointy. I need to just adjust that a little bit. So now we'll do the right arm, and you just want to turn the doll to have her back facing you, and we just follow the same steps as for the left arm. And you just want to insert your hook into one of those back loops, your yarn, and just pull it through. Make a little chain, and now you're onto the doll. So now you just go back into that same space to create your first single crochet in the back loops. The whole round is the back loops, just like the left arm. And now you just want to single crochet 8 in total, and I'll just meet you at the other end. So we have our 8 single crochets into the back loops only. Now just turn the doll around and you'll be able to join up the arm. This little tail here, just put that to the front of the doll, and that way it'll stay available for you to sew up the tiny little gap under the arms when you finish. So now you just want to go into this first V here. So just take your hook and go in front of your work like this, and insert your hook, and then that'll be the first single crochet of round 2, and you'll want to do 10 rounds of single crochet 8. So before you go any further, I suggest that you add a little bit more stuffing into the shoulders just to make sure that they're not flat, just like you did here for the left arm. And if you want to, you can stuff the arm as you go as well, but it is important to put some stuffing into this shoulder up here. Okay, so we'll just continue and I'll meet you back at the marker. And you just want to close up that little hole, that little gap there, just the same way that you did with the left arm. And just take your needle through that front loop, so from the inside to the outside, and just pull that through. And you just want to go into each one of these open loops, just only the front, and just pull it through. So now you just want to just thread your needle through to the body and just secure everything the way you did for the left arm. And also for the left arm, just follow the same steps as you did with the tail, and just close up that little tiny gap in there with this tail that you have left. So there's her body. She's looking really cute, but she's still very plain at the moment, so we will have to do a few little touches to her to make her look cuter. So I will be doing following videos of her face embroidery and her hair, how to add a skirt into these open loops here, and that way the little shorts, instead of being shorts, they can be a pair of undies and you'll just have a little skirt going over the top. Now do remember, you don't have to make this a pair of shorts. You could have just continued on with the blue or whatever color you're using to make actually a pair of pants. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you will like and subscribe to my channel. There is a notifications bell down there as well these days, so if you would like to ring that bell, you'll get a notification every time I put out a new video. So thank you again for watching, and see you next time.